The last stand at Sector 9. The stars were dying. Not literally, and not yet. But to Commander Veluz of the Galactic Council Defense Fleet, it felt that way. From the bridge of the Dawn's Promise, she watched the tactical display flicker and fail as another Allied cruiser vanished in a burst of white-hot plasma. 17 ships remained. An hour ago, there had been 63. Commander, the Haven forming up for another push. Her tactical officer reported, mandibles clicking with barely contained panic. He was Kithraki, a species known for their calm under fire. That calm was gone now. Veluz said nothing. What was there to say? The battle was already lost. Across the black void of Sector 9, the enemy waited. 300 Haven warships hung in perfect geometric formation. A living wall of bioengineered vessels that pulsed with bioluminescent menace. They did not hurry. They did not need to. The Haven Collective fought with the patience of a predator that knew its prey had nowhere left to run. They had been right every time before. All ships, Veluz transmitted, her voice steady despite the tremor in her claws. Pull back to defensive ring formation. Concentrate fire on their lead dreadnoughts. If we're going to fall, we fall fighting. Acknowledgements flashed across her console. Brave words from dying crews. The Haven advanced. Their weapons spoke first, lances of crimson energy that crossed the distance in heartbeats. The shield of Tyros took a direct hit, its shields collapsing like tissue paper. The frigate Windrunner tried to evade, but the Haven fired in volleys, predictive algorithms plotting every possible escape route. There was no escape. Veluz watched ships crewed by people she'd known for decades simply cease to exist. Distress beacon is still transmitting, her communications officer said quietly. No response. Of course there wasn't. The Galactic Council had already evacuated this sector. The core worlds were preparing their final defenses, not to win, but to buy time for the evacuation fleets. Sector 9 was a sacrifice. Everyone here knew it. Everyone had volunteered anyway. Commander. The sensors officer's voice cracked with something that wasn't quite fear. New contact. Single vessel emerging from hyperspace at Mark 77 Alpha. Veluz's eyes snapped to the display. A blue icon flickered into existence at the edge of the battle space, far behind the Haven formation. One ship. Identification, she demanded. Unknown configuration. Hull signature doesn't match any known vessel class. Wait. The officer's tendrils froze over his console. It's responding to our distress beacon. Audio only. Transmitting now. Static filled the bridge. Then a voice, measured, deliberate, the kind that chose its words before speaking them. This is the UESS Retribution responding to Galactic Council distress call. Commander, we have your tactical picture. We see 300 Haven warships. We see 17 of yours. We're not here to witness. Stand by for coordinated engagement. Silence. You asked, someone whispered. United Earth, Veluz breathed. Something she'd thought long dead stirred in her chest. Not hope, not yet. Something more careful than hope. Possibility. They actually came. The Haven noticed the newcomer. Of course they did. 300 warships began to rotate, weapons arrays tracking the single vessel that dared enter the killing field. Data streamed across Veluz's screens as her ship's sensors finally got a proper read on the human vessel. It was massive, nearly twice the length of a Haven dreadnought. Its hull was angular and layered, not brutish but deliberate. Every surface seemed calculated. No wasted lines, no decorative plating. It was a ship that had been designed by people who understood exactly what war cost, and had decided to pay it anyway. They sent one ship, the tactical officer said, despair creeping back into his voice. One ship against 300. Then the Retribution opened a channel, not to fire, but to speak. Commander Veluz. Captain Chen's voice again, calm and direct. I'm sending you our targeting analysis now. We've identified 4 structural weak points in the Haven formation. If your remaining ships can hold pressure on the eastern flank for 11 minutes, we can collapse their command cluster. Can you do that? Velu stared at the data package appearing on her screens. Detailed, precise, already cross-referenced with her own fleet's capabilities. They had not arrived firing blindly. They had arrived having already studied the battle. Yes, she said. We can do that. Good. Retribution is moving in. Match our timing on the mark. Then the human ship accelerated, not recklessly, not in a straight burning charge, but on a carefully angled vector that the Haven formation could not easily track without breaking their own geometric order. It was forcing them to choose, maintain formation, or respond to the threat. Either answer cost them something. The Retribution's first shot was a tungsten slug traveling at 30% light speed. It did not target the nearest ship. It targeted the precise junction between three Haven cruisers, a point that Velus's own analysts had overlooked, and when it struck, the kinetic force shattered the lead dreadnought and sent debris cascading into both flanking vessels, crippling all three simultaneously. The Haven recoiled. Velus's bridge erupted in shocked chatter, but she was already issuing orders. Eastern flank, push now. Full spread. Make them look at us. Her 17 ships lurched forward in tight formation, not a charge, but a coordinated press that forced the Haven's eastern wing to commit forces to hold the line. It brought the Retribution what it needed. The human ship moved through the gap like something threading a needle. Its rail guns fired in rhythm, not rapidly, but with deliberate spacing that prevented the Haven from predicting impact points. Each shot killed. None were wasted. The Haven adapted. They always adapted. 50 ships concentrated their fire on a single point of the Retribution's forward shields, combined firepower that could sterilize a continent, hammering the same location repeatedly. Searching for the breaking point. The shields buckled. Wavered. Held. Then the Retribution adjusted its angle, and Velus realized what she was watching. The human ship was not simply tanking damage. It was managing it, reading incoming fire patterns and rotating its aspect to distribute shield stress. The maneuver was subtle enough that she'd almost missed it. They are not just absorbing hits, a tactical officer said slowly. They are redirecting them. Yes, Velus said. Keep the eastern flank pressured. 2 more minutes. Boarding pods launched from the Haven fleet, hundreds of them, organic vessels that could latch onto enemy hulls and burn through. It was a tactic that had worked against every species they'd encountered. The pods reached the Retribution's hull. Latched on. Began to cut. Then the human ship's hull electrified. Millions of volts arced across the armor plating, frying every boarding pod in seconds. Those that survived the initial shock were blown clear by explosive bolts, tumbling away into space. Nice try, a younger voice came across the comm, one of the Retribution's crew, not the captain. But if you want on this ship, you're going to need to knock first. Laughter. Human laughter, echoing across the channel. In the middle of a battle that would decide the fate of civilizations. Velus felt a chill run down her spine, not from fear, but from a sudden, vivid understanding. These people were not reckless. They were not careless. They laughed because they had prepared for this, planned for this, and were now executing the plan. The laughter was not bravado. It was confidence. What kind of species laughed in combat? One that had survived enough of it to stop fearing it. The Retribution's main guns began to charge. Velus could see it on sensors, massive energy buildup, far beyond anything the Council had ever fielded. Not a desperate last measure. A step in the sequence. Council vessels, this is your mark, Captain Chen transmitted. All ships, full retreat, clear the engagement zone. Move now. Velus gave the order without hesitation. Her fleet pulled back in tight formation, the way Chen's tactical data had suggested, a withdrawal pattern that kept them out of the Retribution's firing lines while still denying the Haven a clean pursuit angle. The Retribution's main batteries fired. The beams were blue-white, nearly too bright to look at even on filtered displays. They did not pulse. They were sustained, connecting the human ship to the heart of the Haven formation like bridges built from starfire. 3 Haven dreadnoughts caught in those beams ceased to be ships. They became expanding clouds of superheated vapor. The Haven formation collapsed inward, abandoning their geometry for more concentration of force. 200 ships converged on the retribution from all vectors, above, below, all sides. There was nowhere to evade. The human ship detonated a ring of nuclear warheads in a perfect sphere around itself. The sensors whited out. When they cleared, Velu saw the aftermath. Dozens of Haven ships tumbling through space, all scorched, systems failing. The retribution emerged from the center of the blast, shields flickering but intact, secondary batteries already cycling back online. "Commander," her tactical officer said quietly. "The Haven command cluster. It's exposed." Velus looked. He was right. Chen's analysis had been accurate to the second. 11 minutes of eastern flank pressure, and now the Haven Central Coordination Hub sat unshielded, its escort vessels drawn out of position. "Captain Chen," Velus said. "I see it," came the reply. A pause. "Do you want the shot, Commander? Your fleet? Your sector?" Velus stared at the targeting solution on her screen. Her 17 ships, battered, low on power, crewed by people who had said goodbye to their families to buy time for an evacuation, still had enough left for one coordinated volley. "All Council vessels," she transmitted, her voice steady. "Target the command cluster. Full spread on my mark." She looked at the tactical display one last time. The retribution had moved into a flanking position, not to steal the shot, but to cover them. To make sure nothing interfered. Mark. Every remaining gun in the 17-ship fleet fired simultaneously. The Haven command cluster detonated. The signal that coordinated 300 warships across a shared hive mind simply vanished, and for the first time in 1,000 years of war, the Haven collective experienced something it had no framework for. Silence inside itself. The fleet broke. Not in panic, the Haven did not panic, but in the cold mechanical recognition that coherence was gone. Individual vessels made individual decisions. They scattered, hyperspace drives flaring, abandoning the system in ones and twos and clusters until the void of Sector 9 held only wreckage and the stunned silence of the survivors. Velu stared at her displays. The Haven didn't retreat. They had never retreated. Not once in 100 conquered systems. Until now. The retribution hung in the void, battered but unbroken, surrounded by the debris of what had been 300 enemy warships. Its engines dimmed. Its weapons powered down. Captain Chen's voice came through one final time. Still measured. Still precise. But underneath it, something quieter, something that sounded almost like relief. "Council vessels, Sector 9 is clear. Good shooting." Velus looked at her crew. They were standing, all of them, she realized, had risen from their stations without noticing. They were looking at her, and at the tactical display, and at each other, with expressions she had not seen on any of their faces in a very long time. She thought about the Council's decision, years ago. The human delegation had been polite but firm when the Council suggested they adopt standard defensive technologies. "We appreciate the offer," the ambassador had said, "but we'll stick with what works for us." The Council had called it arrogance. Primitive stubbornness. They had been wrong. Humanity had not rejected galactic technology out of pride. They had spent centuries solving problems the hard way, developing their own answers, their own methods, their own understanding of what war cost and what it required. They had nearly destroyed themselves a dozen times, and each time they had rebuilt, they had learned something the survivors of easier histories never did. They had learned how to fight alongside others without needing to lead. How to hand someone else a victory and call it a win. The Galactic Council had rejected their application. Called them too warlike. Too dangerous. Not civilized enough. Velus looked at the debris field around them. At her 17 surviving ships. At the clean, precise targeting solution that had made this possible. The galaxy was about to have a longer conversation about what civilized meant. And humanity, it seemed, was patient enough to wait for it. Across every frequency, in every language spoken in Sector 9, the Retribution transmitted a single final message before its running lights dimmed to travel configuration. This is UESS Retribution. Sector clear. Standing by if you need us. Not a declaration. Not a warning. An offer.